Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here, hosted in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and I'm presenting to you my research with AUSN on the integration of traditional knowledge into tertiary education, the case of traditional medicine in Uganda. My name is Anke Weisheit. I'm a German national. I'm an engineer by profession, and I'm living since 16 years in Uganda. It's very important to note this from context. Then you may know or may wonder why a German lady is working on dedicating her life to African indigenous knowledge. It's a bit strange if you don't know the context. So I lived in 16 years, in 2002, in Uganda, working with traditional health practitioners since then. So out of my experience with them, you will see later in my paper, you see why I came out and say we need to do something more than lining one project after another like a chain on your neck. For ease of reading, I have marked the text in green. I'm now on page number 4 for the Skype group who follows me. Abstract. Let me summarize this work. Indigenous knowledge and traditional medicine have for many decades been complex, elusive and debatable concepts. Both concepts have determined political and research discourse since time immemorial. The research aimed at examining integration of indigenous knowledge in tertiary education systems, and in this case, traditional medicine in Uganda. This is a qualitative research based on analysis of available literature on indigenous knowledge and traditional medicine, and practical experience gained during the establishment of Farm Biodrug as Mara University of Science and Technology. In full, the center is called Pharmaceutical Biotechnology and Traditional Medicine Center. I'm one of the founders and the brainchild of this process. We will hear later from. The overarching aim was to document integration of IK in tertiary institutions. Key findings indicate that there is an overwhelming reliance on traditional medicine in both rural and urban areas. Nevertheless, integration of IK in tertiary institution in Uganda is a little bit there, but not much. And the process is of absence of supporting policies and legal framework in tertiary institution, despite the overwhelming support from the Ugandan government, Ministry of Science and Technology, and international agency. So this is now the description, a kind of a presenting a possible solution that traditional medicine in Uganda, government, the international community is now recognizing it and supporting it, also in their policies. But there's no framework how to now put IK into higher education. So I developed the model which I like to present. So let's first define indigenous knowledge. We are on page 10 of the PDF file. Article 14 of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People stated that 1. Indigenous people have the right to establish and control their educational systems and institutions providing education in their own languages in a manner appropriate to their cultural method of teaching and learning. Number 2. Indigenous individuals, particularly children, have the right to all levels and forms of education, particularly without discrimination. 3. State shall, in conjunction with indigenous people, take efficient measure in order to, for indigenous individuals, particularly children, those living outside their community, have access, when possible, to an education in their own culture and provided in their own languages, where possible. It is worth noting that indigenous knowledge has increasingly become a major area of research by various scholars interested in education innovation at national and international levels. Recognition of indigenous knowledge in tertiary discipline is very paramount because it's expressing the recognition in diversity. Lately at Pension Safer 2006, as said, several programs have been indicated in order to integrate IK in higher institutions of learning. For instance, creation an early childhood development program, Virtual University in Sub-Saharan Africa, was a fundamental venture through which particular approaches used in developing nations have been used. For instance, there have been effective way of promoting higher education capacity building programs to energize early childhood development policies by integrating IK into higher education through the following ways. 1. By integrating participant contribution into program content development. 2. By supporting participants to apply their learning within the community. 3. By encouraging the use of knowledge in policy fora. And 4. By disseminating cultural appropriate ECD approaches at multi-level level from local to international. Coming to indigenous knowledge. Indigenous knowledge refers to different definitions. I just mentioned one for the time being. Local knowledge that is unique to a given culture or society. It is the formation of base for a society which facilitates communication and decision making. Indigenous knowledge systems form a basis of decision making which is operationalized through indigenous organizations, and they provide the foundation for local innovation and experimentation. So, very important to know, in the past, indigenous knowledge is usually passed on from older to younger generation, also called intergenerational knowledge transfer. Now, in the contemporary way of separating the education between a child has a dual education. There's the family education and the formal setting education. What is also a little bit lacking in these societies was mentioned by a scholar earlier, that the family become more nucleus. So families educating the children and then school educating children. Usually the community is left out with educating children. There is an African proverb saying, a village is need a whole village to educate a child. It's not a family and an institution, it's a societal job. But unfortunately, that is a little bit lacking. Also, that higher education systems usually appreciate more knowledge from holders who have papers, having degrees, certificates, and the indigenous knowledge holder who have formal knowledge, less appreciated by the formal system, are often left out by the training of students. In the view of above, this research looks at indigenous knowledge system as a complex set of knowledge and technologies existing in the development for specific condition of population and communities indigenous to a particular geographic area and their interfaces with others. This research needs to understand IKS in the role in the community life form as an integrated perspective that includes both spiritual and material aspects of a society as well as the complex relation between them. As such, it is necessary to understand and explore the following. The potential of contribution that IKS can make to local, social, political and economic development. The protection of IKS and its utilization for the benefit of its owner and the community where it is practiced, as well as in the Eastern and Central African areas at whole. Anything what you like to conserve, protect, there is a good way of doing so by making sensible use out of it. Also using these systems and for the benefit of people. Only then it will be, first of all, live ahead and will also be protected. What benefits humankind will be protected. How to enhance the place between a larger body of science and knowledge systems. The institutional setup for mainstreaming IK into research, training and practical application, in this case of traditional medicine. This study is narrowing down to traditional medicine. The larger idea is wider. Let me three more subjects. One is education, another one is social science and anthropology, another one is engineering, another section which could be highlighted in future institution is the use of traditional knowledge into agriculture and food science. So there are different sections, but here we are explaining about traditional medicine. Indigenous knowledge provides a basis for problem-solving strategies for local communities and represent an important component of local knowledge for development issues. It's often underutilized, however, as a resource in development process due to lack of guidance for recording, codifying and applying such knowledge. This case is mainly in the Southern African context. India, for example, and China, they have scripts of traditional knowledge being recorded in Sanskrit in different languages and for thousands of years. But Southern Saharan African, the culture of knowledge transfer is oral and therefore not so much documented. Thus, a good understanding is required of indigenous knowledge and its role in community life to get from an integrated perspective that includes both spiritual and material aspects of the society, as well as a complex relation between them. At the same time, it's necessary to understand and explore the potential contribution of indigenous knowledge to national and regional development. So I have already mentioned here, explain it, that traditional medicine, I will not repeat it. So now let's talk about traditional medicine in a global, African and Ugandan perspectives. WHO, the World Health Organization, Department of Traditional Medicine, the secretariat is in Congo, Brazzaville, based for the Africa continent, indicates that there have been increase in demand and popularity of use of traditional medicine and complementary medicine worldwide. The report further highlights that the developing countries, especially in rural areas, traditional health practitioners are the main health provider for millions of people. We can see this on the figures. Increasingly, the ratio of traditional health practitioner to population in Africa is 1 traditional health practitioner to 500 community members. And the ratio of medical doctors to population is in average 1 to 40,000. So one medical doctor, one doctor from the university having a degree in allopathic medicine, and 40,000 inhabitants in average. Now these figures are average. In a city like Dakar, it will be a better situation. But in a village, deep in the village, where most medical health professionals don't like to work, therefore this ratio is then even much higher. In the same vein, Weisheit and Male are said, so here just to explain, Weisheit is me, and Male is a traditional healer in Uganda with whom I did a paper for the World Bank some good years back in 2003. I said that traditional medicine consists of different practitioners. For example, bone setters, herbalists, psychic healers, traditional birth attendants, faith healers, diviners and spiritualists. These mainly use indigenous knowledge for developing materials and procedures. It is possible to observe that it was from such perspective and processes above that led indigenous people to be labeled backward, passive and unscientific by authentic scholars, because ultimately the knowledge was not captured and stored in systematic matter. That is now in the written version. In my experience version, when I started at the university doing some work on traditional medicine, people labeled me as unscientific. Why are you dealing with these backward people? And so on. I got named. I will not mention the names I was given, but it's also again from the Euroscientific perspective where everything traditional is backward and everything from the West, especially from Europe and America, is super. That unfortunate mindset is eroding the respect and the opportunities of traditional medicine integration. According to World Health Organization Global Report on Traditional and Complementary Medicine, the policy on traditional complementary medicine in Uganda is integrated into national policy of public-private policy for health and regulated and enshrined in the laws of the country since 1957. It's a good policy. One of the policy objectives of Minister of Health, National Medicine Policy 2015 is to maximize benefits of traditional and complementary medicine where possible and desirable and protect the public against possible negative effect. So there is a great wish to have, but now it is a challenge. Where is the human resource coming from? You have a wish to integrate traditional and complementary into the health system, but how? You need capacity building. You need to produce the scholars to actually do the work. From observational point of view, it is possible to agree that there is overwhelming consumption and utilization of traditional medicine, even though there is currently not enough binding legal support by the government. It's not yet an act, it's still a policy, and we have a traditional and complementary medicine bill, but it's not yet a law, so that's the next level of it. And also the medical councils of each country, they have medical practitioner councils. In Uganda there is no traditional medicine council, which is a regulatory body of practitioner of a profession. These are medical professional councils. In Uganda it's not yet established, but in the process through the Traditional and Complementary Medicine Bill, which is ratified by the Parliament in February 2019. As I mentioned, the practice in Uganda, there are different literature. Some say 80%, some say 60%. When these statistics are formed, unfortunately, some people may use it but don't want to identify themselves as a user, and therefore, in the statistic, they may not tell you. But there's a very big number of babies who are based in traditional medicine, but later the family can deny, but sure they have done it. That is because of the image of traditional medicine. So the figures are not very accurate, so different literature say 60%, some say 80, some say 90. What we can say, it is greatly used. That is enough for the vision of integrating traditional medicine in higher education. That is enough. I don't need exact figure how many percent of the society, that's not needed. In Uganda, traditional health care providers are organized in various associations. For example, the Uganda National Integrated Forum for Traditional Health Practitioners, the Uganda Netakala Layo, the Uganda Herbalist Association, Uganda Netakala Layo Kiasi Mayantamidi, the Puligama Nebakoyo, and the National Council for Traditional Healers and Herbalist Association, NACOTA. These are national organizations. We have also regional organizations, for example, the Busheni Medical and Traditional Healers Association, BUMETA. That's a group I have worked with for 3 years and worked with over 150 traditional healers organized in 5 different groups within the same association. Another one is the Batambi Keterera, that is in far far west from Uganda, the Bunyoni Herbalist Association. So the Bunyoni Herbalist Association, for example, also formed a SACCO, a village saving and lending scheme to develop their profession further. It is possible to argue that unveiled recently Association of Traditional Medicine Practitioners have not been recognized yet the role played in availing health service to the local people. This can be seen when you look at the national budget of a country. When, let me just be very conservative, 60% of the people using traditional medicine. But when you look at the budget figure, how much from the national budget goes actually in programs related to traditional medicine, maybe just related, you find the figures not matching. Meaning, people use it, but the support is not catching up with the same level of usage. Other practices are performed at the community and individual level, doing rites of passage ceremonies like birth, adulthood, marriage, and death. So these are very high points where traditional knowledge is applied. In income-generating activities, IKE is utilized in agriculture practice, post-harvest handling, for example in food preservation of grains against pests and diseases, food processing and off-farm activities like basketry, carpentry, carving, construction, metallurgy, and adjacent activity to serve the needs of local people. An example is the self-help organization called a Stretcher Group. This is a community in a very mountainous area of the country, very high mountains, and the Stretcher Association is a group of people who pay a small fee as a membership, and when they get sick, a stretcher, as it says, or in these days it will be a car or a motorcycle or a bicycle, will bring a patient to the next health facility. In the past it was a stretcher, a physical stretcher of lifting, 4 people lifting one patient down the hill to the clinic or to the health center. And now these days it's either a motorcycle or bicycle or a car, depends on. But the principle is based on the indigenous knowledge of helping cope together. In Uganda, indigenous communities are defined in 3 major indigenous groups. The Batwa and the Bennett, the hunters and gatherers, with adoption to live in thick forests. And the Karamojong, the pastoralists, who are herders, and central to the culture is cows, whereby the Karamojong in some literature are not recognized as indigenous people, but they have a very distinctive culture, and therefore in this it will be counted as one member of the indigenous people. So the research purpose. The purpose of this research was to understand the potential and document the institutional integration of indigenous knowledge, science and practice into tertiary institutions, research, training and development using the case of biotechnology and traditional medicine center. It's very paramount that we have 3 elements: the research, the training and the development. That means first to understand content, to develop content, then to teach means to transmit knowledge into the younger generation, and development means making use of these things that are researched, trained into the society through development, making use of it. So these are the 3 elements. The research objectives are, this research sought to achieve the following objective. 1. To understand the potential of IK in Uganda's health system. 2. To document the integration of indigenous health knowledge in tertiary education on the case of biotech. To provide suggestions for regional upscaling of IK in tertiary institutions. The research questions are: what is the potential of traditional medicine in serving as complementary and alternative medicine in Uganda? How can traditional medicine be integrated in tertiary institutions in Uganda? What strategies can be applied for regional upscaling of IK integration, tertiary integration. Why upscaling, you wonder? It's very important in one center, in one location, may not have the impact to the whole continent to serve, to integrate traditional knowledge into higher education. So it's important to upscale the model, adapt it to the local situation in other countries and regions, but do it, and not just having one isolated center. It's like the nuclear family. You have one small, it will not have much impact. Method. The method was mainly qualitative, based on analysis of available literature on IK and traditional medicine. Integrative review method was used. Literature collection, review and analysis. Integrative review is critical review approach that aims to analyze, assess and synthesize literature on research topic in a way that enables new theoretic framework and perspectives to emerge. The nature of the design of the research was a case study design because it investigates a contemporary phenomenon within a real-life context, especially when the boundaries between phenomenon and context are not clearly evident. Also, the case studies focus on understanding the dynamics of existing within a single setting. So what I'm demonstrating, what I'm presenting here is a single setting. Therefore, it's not a copy-paste model. It's not tested in other societies, but it can build, it can space a backbone from where new things for new countries and society can be designed. It's just a case. So in Uganda, I have the school director, several studies done on indigenous knowledge use. It's very many studies, single studies, either on sexual dysfunction, on childbearing, on malaria, on infection control, fungus in the skin. There's so many studies, single studies, they're there, like they're pillars, they're there, but they're not combined under one roof. All these Ugandan studies have been informative and identifying gaps in indigenous knowledge and traditional medicine research. Many studies have focused on singular aspects of indigenous knowledge, traditional medicine, integration, and the relevance of these studies cannot be questioned. They are good studies. However, Ugandan studies on indigenous knowledge and traditional medicine have not focused on IK and traditional medicine integration in tertiary education, learning, and research. This research fills the apparent gap, and the point of the debate in this research to document the creation of indigenous knowledge in tertiary institutions in Uganda. The theoretical framework used in this research is a principle, or the theory is a principle or set of abstract facts that operates, contract, and practice. This research was informed and underpinned by Onyuni's continuity argumentation theory. According to author cited in Onyuni and Onyu, Kat assumes that when two cultures or systems meet, they seek a platform for coexistence through a process of conceptual appropriation, accommodation, integrative reconciliation, and adaptation. Kat is enriched in the aspiration continuity theory, which states that one or two worldviews greatly depends on each other to generate an optimal cognitive state. Nutika elucidates that Kat is a psychic unit of mankind which from the time immemorial always accompanied the contact between different peoples and societies. Kat deals with the nature of interaction between notably different thought systems. In so doing, where the interpretation of interaction is in regard to dynamic way in which successive, spontaneous, similar, causal, coexistent, and sometimes confliction perception combine, converge, or collaborate form a higher form of consciousness. In this case, the research is balanced under this theory because it looks into interaction between indigenous knowledge and how it's been merged and integrated in tertiary institutions which were inherently oriented by Eurocentric education system. Now, just mention, Uganda was one of the colony from European countries, so colonialism has made this inherent Eurocentric education system, because most of the education content and practice, the way it's taught, is copied from the Eurocentric world. And not only that, it's copied and somehow preserved, meaning in Europe the teaching methods involving fast to modern to adapt to the need of the society. Unfortunately in Uganda, often we still have chalk and talk. Chalk and talk is chalk and blackboard talk. So not using modern or practical or innovative way of content delivering to students and to pupils. So it remains not the dynamic like in the world we need to adjust. So CAT has 5 categories from which conception within a learner's mind can move. The dominant, that is what in moment in Uganda between the Eurocentric and the indigenous knowledge is, a powerful idea explains and predicts facts and events effective and conveniently or resonate with an acceptable social norm that affords an individual sense of integrity. A scientific explanation of lightning in terms of static electricity as opposed to the explanation profane for the same phenomena within indigenous worldview. Suppressed. An idea becomes suppressed in the face of more valid, predictive, empirically testable evidence or established social norm. E.g., the scientific explanation of the cause of a disease may be suppressed in the face of cultural belief about possible diabolical motives of enemies behind the disease. For example, in Uganda we say someone is bewitched. That is now another way of belief of saying I'm sick because someone bewitched me. The science say I'm sick because I have diabetes or I have infection, pneumonia for example. Assimilated. A less powerful idea may be assimilated into a more powerful one in terms of persuasiveness or adaptability of the dominant idea to a given context. E.g., the indigenous idea of not learning against, leaning against a metal pole, tree or wall, which may have arisen from experience, can easily be assimilated into the scientific concept of lightning as an electric phenomenon. Emergent. There are many circumstances where no pure idea exists and a new one has to be acquired or developed. E.g., a considerable amount of scientific concepts such as atoms, molecules, magnetism, conservation of matter, laws of motion, AC has usually been learned from school science. Equivalent. When two competing ideas have comparably equal intellectual force and ideas tend to coexist without necessarily resulting in a conflict, the theory of evolution versus creatism. Evolution is the non-religious and creatism is the religious version of how human beings came onto us. It is imperative to note that there are 5 categories of paramount in as far as integration of indigenous knowledge in tertiary education institution is concerned. So the indigenous right we have already spoken about. What is the time? As I mentioned, the government has a high effort now on promoting traditional medicine. The Parliament Committee on Health has recommended that the bill entitled Traditional and Complementary Medicine Bill is passed into an Act of Parliament. And this bill includes, for example, the maintenance of a council as proposed in the bill, the establishment of traditional complement medicine structures at all level. So establishing an institute is already a structure in the education section. Facilitating training of traditional complement medicine in training institutions. Support large-scale multi-centric clinical research. In light of the above bill, the Directorate of Industrial Training, that is the Directorate for Vocational Training, has developed an assessment and training package called Purbalist. So it's now in the vocational system available, a need for the implementation, again, institutional frameworks. I'm continuing. So, challenges and opportunities of integration of indigenous knowledge, traditional medicine. The challenges. It is vital to note that effective integration, design and implementation of IK in academic institutions has faced numerous challenges, including the teacher's perception of IK learners, knowledge of IK, strategy of integration, language issues, resource belief, as well as theoretical understanding for the implementation of indigenous curricula. Tradition versus innovation, a common misconception. The belief that traditional knowledge is not good and that modern technologies and tools are better is portrayed wrongly in many situations throughout formal education and socialization systems. Our African culture and heritage tend to be intentionally discarded, leaving room for imported ones and creating a new world order where the old is regarded as primitive and archaic. That's real negative. Mark Lautin argued that most of the publications associated with embedding indigenous knowledge in university curriculum do not end up in accessible forms and forums where they can be discussed, contested, corrected and extended and fed into the contribution to indigenous knowledge production to serve IK communities and users. Hoppers reports that little space is available for curriculum adaptation, for linking school knowledge with local and indigenous knowledge, and combining education with skills development for rural economy. The challenge is that indigenous knowledge is often seen as backward, primitive, non-scientific, dangerous, and not admirable. That is a personal observation. And that is resulting in the naming I have received. That is the sampling. The sampling procedure is just doing the work in a certain community and you receive verbal feedback. Names. And this is the way I have seen it. That's a personal perception. When I discuss with other people working in the indigenous knowledge field, they have similar experience of saying they are also getting nice names. That's not nice. Therefore, we need to do something. Opportunities. The opportunity for IK in Uganda are great, providing a source of livelihood in innovation, diversification and choice from which the development and research can be derived. The Institute, if established, will provide a long-term and permanent platform for mutual integration with other institutions of IK in Uganda and internationally providing avenues for sharing, collaboration in various fields, and as well as learning from each other. Africa and Uganda in particular can provide knowledge and service to the market other than traditional export products like unprocessed raw materials and agriculture goods. So Africa as a continent, Uganda in particular, can become a knowledge society, not just bringing raw material for the others to process. The Institute of Indigenous Knowledge will provide a framework for developing solutions from within. Local solutions for local challenges. For example, is issues on health, environment, climate and agriculture. The Institute, when established and in operation, can provide a vast insight, inform upscaling of this approach to other universities and countries. The Ugandan government, for example, has the Uganda build Uganda policy, the Boo policy, approved by Cabinet in 2014 to promote the consumption and procurement of goods and service of local base. So also a number of other international donors have it now in their program to integrate indigenous knowledge. The finding. Now is a bit of the pathway how this research came into existence. The researchers work in Uganda since 2002. First, by implementing a medicinal tree project at Rukaraba Partnership Workshop for Rural Development in Busheni, Western Uganda. She worked with 5 traditional practitioner groups, associations, reaching about 150 TMPs. The 2-year project, funded by USAID and implemented World Agriculture Center, Nairobi, Kenya, and the local NGO who hosted the project, called Rukaraba Partnership Workshop for Rural Development, was building. What was the work of this project? Number 1. Sustainable wild crafting, harvesting and post-harvest handling of medicinal plants and tree species. 2. Tree and plant nursery management. 3. Cultivation of medicinal species on farm. It's very important that wild population are declining because of climate or over-harvesting or just new use of land, more urbanization. And therefore we need to bring more plants from the wild to the farm to serve the need. 4. Improved herbal medicine processing, packaging and labeling. 5. Herbal clinic patient management and also patient care and management, how to run the clinic. 6. Financial literature and village and savings lending schemes in village setting to develop economically from within. She realized that existing development policies in 2002 as well as development parties rarely focused on the development from within, which has positively changed to these days. This is 16 years ago. The researcher identified that mainstreaming IKS and T in development projects, the sample of Bukharawi is a sample. So the Institute serves as a regional academic center for science, research, education and development, born out of the need of recognition for the importance of IK in local and regional development, using local natural resources and human resources as well, as highlighting advocacy to have the rights of indigenous people recognized, respected, integrated in economy and protected worldwide. The mission and vision of the IK Institute. Vision, a world where indigenous knowledge, science and technology is contributing to social, economic transformation of societies, their rights respected and protected, where they are unified, yet diverse people and academicians working together at the local, national and global level towards sustainable development. Mission, to promote and facilitate the recognition of integration of indigenous knowledge and science and technology into other global knowledge in the area of education, research, development, advocacy, networking and institutional development in Africa and beyond. Aims and objective. Traditional systems of knowledge need to be given rightful recognition alongside modern knowledge and science. Western modern knowledge and science is one type of knowledge system among many. It is time to recognize the existing of diverse knowledge systems and its potential derived benefit from each other on the mutual ground, equal mutual. The aims inclusive to develop curricula and teach IK, science and technology as a subject at university level, to document, archive and disseminate IK, develop theoretical and methodological paradigms, develop academic and community level research capacity, to identify, establish and maintain community outreach centers. These outreach centers are very important for the making research, training and development useful to the IK holders and other community members. To provide an interface option with other system of knowledge on mutual ground, we need a platform where can the several systems meet. To fundraise IK related research, training and industrial development. To generate income option for communities and industry using IK system. Justification. Service provided by IK holders and practitioners are not yet fully utilized for economic and social development of communities in Eastern and Central Africa. The contribution of indigenous knowledge to the economy is not visible and holistically researched, not even the potential to interface with other knowledge systems for development. The integration of IK systems in academic learning and research is not practiced widely, and the result being that indigenous people's knowledge and skills have not been integrated in mainstream development intervention to benefit them and the whole population. Proposed activities of the institutes in brief: education, training, capacity building, research, development and utilization. And then collection, documentation and dissemination, the different elements. And the fourth is community outreach. Usually there's a discrepancy between universities as centers of knowledge generation and knowledge use. Often the knowledge generated does not land into the community to be used. So community outreach centers are very important in the model to make sure that the research is actually reaching the people from which the knowledge has come. Here is a model of an expansion. In the middle is a center. I have called it Hekima. You can call it any local name. Hekima in Swahili means wisdom. Hekima Institute of Indigenous Knowledge, you see it in the center, the green, and then you have 3 community outreach centers. The idea is that within a given community, you have different language and cultural groups. In Uganda, for example, the center, when it's built in Western Uganda, is inhabited by the people of the Banyankole. Now, a community center will be in the Banyankole culture, means in the host culture where the center is located, there will be also one community center. Now, to find out, to help that the communities among each other also exchange knowledge, because usually the communities again living a bit separate, to have community outreach center in another center, for example, a centro, Mudibagandas, the Muganda community, and then one maybe in the north, the Choli community. There are 2-3 different cultural groups to start with. And therefore we can have inter-community and intra-community exchange. Also, the intra-community is within the same community exchange to have a platform. Intra-community exchange is when community A, the Banyankole, and community B, the Muganda, are now exchanging knowledge. It's intra and inter-community exchange. Now, after this happened, it's very important that this model is not static to one center. You see, there is a spin-off institute in another place. It could be a country, it could be a community, it could be a continent. It's not limited. But that is how you have the first one, you come out with it, and then you spin it off to another site. This is just an attempt to have a spatial arrangement of such a center. Let me start from the...
2 minutes.
2 minutes. We have the laboratories, the teaching facilities, the office, the STEAM administration, the library and digital library, an incubation center where the products are developed, the permanent exhibition and shop, that's where the community can interact, and we have different places where students can interact. When I see Ugandan universities, it's very hard to find student space. They sit outside on the verandas or they put some chairs from the classroom outside to meet, to just meet. And so these round blue elements are like cross-hatched huts in that design where people meet, palaver place, makes of traditional meeting places. So now, 1 minute. Let me give you some picture to see. That's the framework of the farm biotrack. Pharmaceutical biotechnology and traditional medicine is in the center here in the model. That's the framework. It works with private sector development organization and with academic observation. And it's hosted at Bar University of Science and Technology. Must is Bar University. Now what is getting in? The traditional knowledge holders having challenges or opportunity in their indigenous knowledge. They have participatory problem and innovation identification. You either have a problem or an innovation, a good idea, must not always be a problem. And then community outreach, when systems come back to the community. And on the right side, service, product, processes and reality come out. Entrepreneurs and or skills with exposed professionals. These are the professionals. Now I'm going to some photographic documentation. This is, for example, the site, the plant site. This is a campus. On here, the dark line is a river. And near the river will be the farm, the herbal farm, and on the hill will be the institutional example. So here is a photographic collection of different products on herbal medicine done by our students and staff. This is a collection. The next picture is me in 2003 when I worked with traditional health practitioner late Eliphas Keita, who was one of the great herbalists. Here you see traditional way of cooking and modern way of cooking to improve the practice. Training herbalists in tincturing. Here is a line from the local way of packaging ointment to the improved way. Thank you very much. I acknowledge everyone for this program, especially the AUSN and Professor Dario Marsa, Provost of the AUSN, and colleagues like Professor Kaya, Dr. Maishri and others. I also thank the Ugandan community, especially the traditional health practitioners, my co-founding members of Farm Biotrack, Professor Celestin Obua, Dr. Kasim Umbatolo, and Patrick Ngo Okwang, with whom we developed the project Farm Biotrack together. And finally, I thank the fellow students and faculty of AUSN for reshaping my approach to traditional medicine development through the lens of bioethics and public health, which paved the way for me to come out with this model. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anke.
Our seminar is Bioethics, Indigenous Knowledge and Global Public Health. We welcome Professor Messer to our hardest welcome to AIOB.
Thank you.
And I would like to invite Dr. Charles to inaugurate the program.
Well, we do not have a phone, but with our voice, teachers should have always a modulated voice to be heard by all the students. That is really one requirement. If you apply for teaching in this university, make sure that you have a modulated voice. Because you do not just in the microphone. And that is one character trait of it, or potential trait of a teacher. As I have been teaching for the last 52 years, so my voice is still there. Yes, yes. Madam said, wow, yes, I am the oldest person in this room. So my teaching experience alone of 52 years, so maybe you're thinking, how old am I? I will leave that to you. First, I would like to welcome everybody in today's seminar. It is unfortunate that we were not able to invite. We invited, but because of some constraints, our MBA students and some of our students, because today is Thursday. So practically, we do not have class during Thursday. If ever there are classes, it's because of some arrangement with our teachers for a makeup or maybe some activities are there, like this seminar at this time. So participants are not that much. But if it is during weekdays, even if it is at 3:30, our classes ends at 3:30, but still we can ask the students to come. So usually our orientation or other seminars are being held also after this 3:30. At any rate, you're lucky. So we would like to welcome all the MPH students. You're very lucky you're here because this afternoon we have a battery of excellent speakers, especially to give you more knowledge and more information about bioethics, as this is the theme or the topic of the seminar, bioethics, indigenous knowledge and global public health. Indigenous knowledge and global public health. The title itself is something exciting, no? MPH students would be able to benefit from this workshop. And this will be given just, this will be expounded, or this will be discussed by a battery of speakers. Of course, our friend who is here in the group, Professor Darrell Masser, who is the chair and president of the American University of Sovereign Nations. Welcome, Dr. Darrell. This is your second time to our university, no? So thank you so much for coming again. Dr. Darrell was with us at the time when we were having our external peer review of the MPH program. I'm trying to elaborate this to all your colleagues. Colleagues of Darwin will know how familiar we are with him. And it was very helpful in us that MPH is one of the programs were identified by UGC to undergo self-assessment under the Institutional Quality Assurance project. So he was our external peer reviewer after going through the process of self-assessment. So, and now here he is again, sharing this opportunity. And we also take this opportunity to invite him since he's already here in Dhaka. So, Darrell, welcome again to our university. We would like also to welcome Professor Anke Weisheit from Barara University of Science and Technology, MAS of Barara, Uganda. Madam, welcome to our university. Another speaker will be Professor Rachidandran Morty, Professor of National University of Malaysia, UKM, Malaysia, the President of Asian Bioethics Association. Sir? Professor Morty? Professor Morty. Okay, so welcome to our university. This is your first time? To Dhaka at the same time, of course, first time at our university. We have so many Malaysian professors who came here as our partners. Right. And at the same time, when we held our international conference on management, so they came here as paper presenters. So we have an ongoing partnership with some of the universities, and some of our faculty are pursuing their PhD in the University of Malaysia. Thank you for coming, Professor Morty. Then we have Dr. Tahira Ahmed, the former acting chief of SHR UNFPA. So part-time faculty of NSU and SUB, assistant representative of UNFPA. You remember that, she? Oh, yeah. UNFPA is the United Nations
Population fund.
For population fund, you know, when you say United Nations, UN, it reminds me where I was then. Some few years back, because I'm also a UNESCO consultant and an advisor. Huh?
Leonardo de la Cruz.
Oh yes, Dr. De La Cruz. Yeah.
He was used to population education.
Yes, he used to be the regional advisor for Asia the Pacific. Asia the Pacific. He's a Filipino. He was with the UNFPA and I was the senior advisor for UNESCO. Based in Bangkok.
He was in UNESCO.
Dr. Domingo. Yes. So these are Filipinos. So like Bangladesh is Filipinos are all over the world and in all other agencies of the government. We're also pleased to welcome Dr. Shahnaz Chaudhary, the Associate Professor of Bangladesh University of Health Sciences.
She's on the way.
She's not arrived yet. She has not arrived yet. So did I miss anything? So all our guest lecturers, sir, have I introduced you already? No?
Introduce yourself.
Is that in the list?
No.